Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. In this video, we are looking at the three-game NFL Thanksgiving Day slate for Draftkings as well as for Fanduel. So happy Thanksgiving to everybody watching. I hope you guys are going to be enjoying the day with your families, eating some good food, watching football. Nothing more you can ask for on a Thursday. We have three games as typical. None of them are jumping off the page. With Trevor Siemian as the quarterback for the Saints. We have banged up Jared Goff. No Justin Fields for the Bears, but overall, we still have some nice plays that we can kind of look to. So let's get into it. If you enjoyed the videos, appreciate it if you guys hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get started. The quarterback picks for this slate, you have Josh Allen and Dak Prescott are the top two weapons here. Josh Allen's been pretty steady, coming off of another disappointing loss. They lost by 26 against the Colts. 2 games ago, they lost to the Jags, and anytime you lose to a team like Jacksonville, that's going to be a big disappointment. Josh Allen's been fine this year. He's not running as much. Only 2 attempts the last couple of games. Looking to throw, he's only had a couple of big-time fantasy games, a 39, a 40 spot here. It's a spot against the Saints defense has been good. They're on the road. Might prefer Dak Prescott. The last time the Cowboys got blown out, or the last time the Cowboys offense was held in check like they were last week against the Chiefs, they put up a 43 spot. Then the following week against the Falcons. So this is an offense that is still talented, even though they're missing probably their top 2 wide receivers. Doesn't look like CeeDee Lamb is going to be able to suit up, and Amari Cooper is obviously out already. But I think Dak is probably one of my favorites. He's a little bit cheaper than Josh Allen, and I'm not really getting riled up about Derek Carr, who's not been very good over the past couple. It's just a tough season for the Raiders. They've gone through a lot of turmoil on the field and off the field with their coaching staff, with a couple of the first-round picks from 2020, and just doesn't look like it's their year. They got off to a good start, but it's recently not been. We've seen Carr at least not be that good for fantasy. 1 touchdown pass, 2 out of his last 3. The offense struggled to move the football last week. They didn't even have the football very much because the Bengals were just eating up the time of possession, and some turnovers from Carr didn't help either. He would be the third quarterback on this 6-gamer that I'm at least looking at. And then it looks like Dalton is going to draw the start for the Bears with Justin Fields doubtful. I mean, he's okay. This Lions defense is not very good. He had a couple of touchdown passes. One was with Darnell Mooney just taking it to the house. But he's still maybe looking to try to fight for his job again. We kind of know what you're getting out of Dalton. He's a mediocre quarterback at best. He's going to have some decent games. Whether he shows up on Thanksgiving against a bad Detroit Lions defense, it's definitely possible. We'll see if he has his weapons to throw to. He would be my 4th option. Siemian would be my 5th option, going up against a pretty good Buffalo team. Siemian was so bad in the first half against Philly, and then they mounted some sort of 4th quarter comeback a bit. Siemian was just all over the place in the first half. But then he somehow found that, so credit to him for kind of riding the ship in the second half. But Buffalo coming off of getting embarrassed by the Colts, I think they're going to show up. And this game, I don't think will be super high scoring, at least from the Saints' perspective. I don't think, doesn't look like they might not have Kamara, who's didn't practice on Tuesday, and they might not have Ingram, who also didn't practice. So if they're without their 2 running backs, it's going to be tough for me to kind of envision them putting up a lot of points against Buffalo. And then Jared Goff is my least favorite quarterback on this 6-gamer, on this 3-gamer out of the 6 teams. Not too much of a surprise there. Don't really see them having success against Chicago's defense. I think Chicago's defense is probably the best one to play on this showdown slate. They're only 3,000. I would expect them to be the most expensive defense, but you're getting them at a pretty good price. Over to running backs, we have Zika Elliott. A guy like Zeke, you would expect him to eat on Thanksgiving. He's had some mediocre games in the past couple of years on Thanksgiving. Nothing crazy. But if they don't have their top 2 weapons, I would say Dak would look to get Zeke more involved, whether that be giving him more carries and feeding him that way, or feeding him with some short receptions out of the backfield. Either way, if there's no Kamara on the slate, and maybe no Ingram or a banged-up Ingram, then it just makes getting up to Elliott even easier. And he does have the better matchup than Alvin Kamara does, and if he's not 100%, not going to be that fun to play. Swift, he had a long touchdown run to kind of salvage his fantasy line last week. 3 receptions for 0 yards, but looks like he might get Jared Goff in there, which would help him. Goff is a lot better just giving some dump-off passes to a guy like DeAndre Swift than Tim Boyle was last week. Just an ugly game against Cleveland. It's not the easiest matchup. Chicago's been good overall, well, mediocre overall defensively. They've been successful to the ground game. So if you wanted to kind of just play Swift, you could. If there's no Ingram, no Kamara, it'll be easier to get to a guy like Swift. But he's going to be behind Zika Elliott for me, and he's probably going to be behind David Montgomery as well. Montgomery's only 6,000, gets the best matchup. Any of these running backs going up against the Lions defense. And Montgomery was on the field for a ton of the snaps last week. Almost, I would say at least 80% of snaps he was on the field for. Just not the best game environment against Baltimore. He got 15 touches in his first game back from a couple after missing a week. And, or maybe, I don't know if they had the bye week, week 10, but he was banged up for a large part of, like, from weeks 4 to week 9. He got off to a good start this year. A couple of big games in his first 4 weeks. He did have a 2-touchdown game against Detroit back in week 4, if you wanted to play that spot. But it is a good matchup against Detroit. So I'll lock in Elliott, lock in Montgomery. Looking for some cheaper running backs here. Tony Pollard is definitely in the mix, especially you could see Pollard line up as a wide receiver more in this game if they don't have CeeDee Lamb as well. Matt Breida's been getting more work, so two-headed monster is not even bad enough. A three-headed monster makes things pretty tough to predict, but the last couple of weeks, Breida has been more explosive than some of these other guys. Then they have Singletary and Moss, so wouldn't be surprised if Breida gets more snaps. He outsnapped Singletary and probably got more snaps than Zach Moss as well. So Breida will probably be my favorite running back, because I think people still might go to Singletary and Moss over Breida, but Breida might be getting a similar work, if not, but he's been looking better than the other guys. So none of them are that appealing, like a must-plays in a tough matchup against the Saints, on the ground at least, but I would say Breida would be my favorite out of the 3. And then you have Josh Jacobs, probably be in front of Matt Breida, but he's just been disappointing this year. He always seems to get banged up. He's been living in the teens and fantasy points. You haven't seen him he hasn't had a 20-point game yet. He hasn't had a monster game. Last couple of getting under 10 carries, basically result of the game environment. He is getting you some receptions out of the backfield, but I definitely prefer Montgomery, $100 more. I prefer Elliott, but he would probably be coming in my 4th running back behind Swift. Wide receivers, you have Stefan Diggs, who will probably draw Lattimore in this game. So last week he only had 4 catches, but 2 of them resulted in touchdowns, so that's going to salvage any sort of fantasy line. He's always a good play to pair with Josh Allen, but it's not the easiest matchup against Marshawn Lattimore. So if you're worried about that, which I am a little bit, I wouldn't mind going to Sanders, who is only $4,800. He's been quiet the last couple. Maybe this week is his week to kind of break out. He gives you upside. He's shown have he's 2 touchdown games. He has two touchdown games, getting you around 4 to 8 targets every single week, most likely. He's a good spot to move the football through the air a little bit, besides the guy that's going to be covered by Lattimore. Renfrow, they only had 6 targets out of the wide receiving core last week for the Raiders, and 4 out of the 6 targets for the wide receivers did go to Hunter Renfrow. He's just been the security blanket for Derek Carr all year, and especially as of late with them not having Henry Ruggs, and with not getting much out of Deshaun Jackson. He had that one big play and then he just coughed it up. So it's definitely Renfrow, and then they have Zay Jones and Bryan Edwards also in the mix because he's only $3,900, but didn't get any targets. But typically he's been right around 4 targets. He's gotten 4 targets in mostly every game. He's averaging 4 on the year, so he's fine just because he's so cheap. But I think Renfrow looks a little bit better just in terms of a higher floor. You have guys like Goodwin if they don't have one of Mooney or Robinson. You have Gabriel Davis, gives you upside at the bottom at 36, but with Dawson Knox back and getting some snaps, he's not a lock to play a bunch, but he could get the job done in limited snaps. You have Cole Beasley, $4,500, and we've seen Traquan Smith be showing up the last couple of weeks with Simeon. Maybe they've kind of have a nice little connection going between the two. He's 44. He makes sense if you need a cheap receiver. You also have Marquez Callaway, 1 big catch last week for a touchdown, 26-yarder. He looks good as well. He is almost similarly priced to Traquan Smith. Smith is a lot cheaper. Probably like Smith a little bit more than Callaway. But I would look at the Bills guys more than those guys. I like Sanders, and I like Beasley more than Callaway and Traquan. And then the Bears receivers, it would probably be Mooney, just because he's 16 targets last week, 5 receptions. He was on pace to have a huge game. He did 26 fantasy points, but could have dropped like a 40 spot if it was more than a 30% catch rate from the targets. Hopefully he plays. He does give you a lot of upside because he can break a deep ball any given time. So I like Mooney more than Allen Robinson. And then Gallup, $5,900. Be a great play to pair with Dak. He is going to be the number 1 receiver if CeeDee Lamb's not able to suit up. Good spot against the Raiders. So he looks appealing. And then you have Cedric Wilson at the bottom. Also would look appealing. You would get a bump to be the second receiver. You'd also see more targets for the tight end, Dalton Schultz. He looks appealing. Troutman had a couple of nice catches last week, especially one in the fourth quarter. An amazing catch, and that was the catch that he hurt his knee on. So he's on IR. Don't have him, so you'll probably see like Jawan Johnson go back to being active and getting you some targets. He gives you some upside there just with the touchdowns, but we'll see how he just hasn't really played much with Simeon. At tight end, Waller is the best option to target. Waller, then I would say would be Dalton Schultz, then Dawson Knox would be my third, then Hawkinson as my fourth. And then you can basically just throw in a sprinkle of like Cole Kmet, Jawan Johnson as guys that might get you some targets and will be super low owned. In the flex, you probably I wouldn't mind looking into a tight end at flex. Usually I don't, but when you have $4,400 Dawson Knox, I think that looks appealing as a cheap guy to plug in. And then at defense, go with the Bears defense. They'll probably be popular, but they get the best matchup. The Cowboys, the Bills viable as well at 31, but I'll probably rank it the Bears was my favorite, the Bills second favorite. Then I'd look into the Cowboys. And then if I needed to just punt with any defense, probably maybe look to like the Lions. Just hope that they can maybe get to Andy Dalton a little bit. Hope that Dalton turns the football over. The Cowboys are probably the best team, at least personally for me, to target. Just with the injuries and them being at home and coming off of a bad loss. Well, not bad loss. Nobody really thought they would win that game. Well, not that many people. But coming off of a disappointing offensive showing, I think they will show out. So this is probably just an initial build to get you started. For Thanksgiving tomorrow, let's look at FanDuel. Okay, on FanDuel, pretty much the same type of deal. At quarterback, Josh Allen. Most expensive, followed by Dak Prescott. Going Prescott on both sites. Like his price tag. Josh Allen would be the second quarterback to look at, followed by Derek Carr. Simeon might be ahead of Dalton. Definitely ahead of Jared Goff on FanDuel at least. Running backs, Kamara, if he's not able to suit up, looking at Zeke as my favorite. He looks better than Swift personally because I like David Montgomery on both sides. Montgomery has the best matchup. Elliott and Montgomery. Hopefully Elliott's healthy. He looks like he is. He's not even on the injury report. So looking at potentially 20-plus touches out of these guys. Montgomery should get a lot of work against this Lions defense. Ingram, if he is playing and there is no Kamara, he looks good at his price tag. And then I would maybe look to like Breida as a probably lower owned option compared to Singletary and Moss, a guy that might get more work than those guys. I've just been playing better than them. Wide receiver, Stefan Diggs, most expensive guy on both sides. Not like I mentioned, he's a great play if you wanted to pair him with Josh Allen, or you can play him by himself. But I'm looking at Gallup as the best to pair with Dak if there is no CeeDee Lamb as well. Darnell Mooney is 68, so he's like pretty expensive on FanDuel, but he's still playable. I like the Cowboys guys a little bit more than him, and I like Hunter Renfrow at 62 more. Just a security blanket for Derek Carr. This game should be one that I would expect it to be higher scoring. So I think that you'd expect the wide receivers on the Raiders to get more than 6 targets that they did last week. And then at the bottom, it's Cedric Wilson, it's Bryan Edwards, it's Sanders. I like him a little bit more than Beasley. And then you can throw in Callaway and Traquan if you're making a bunch of teams. I don't have much interest in the Lions. Pass catchers, on the 3-gamer, everybody's typically in play, but Khalif Raymond would be the guy, Khalif Raymond and Armana St. Brown, but I just don't really like to play a lot of Lions except for DeAndre Swift and maybe Hawkinson at times. Speaking of tight ends and Hawkinson, he's still behind Waller, Schultz, and probably even Dawson Knox for me on FanDuel. He would be my fourth guy at 61. And with all these guys being similarly priced, besides Darren Waller, Waller's the best raw points player, but the other guys look better. If you want to save some money, it would probably be Schultz, then Dawson Knox, if I had to rank them. And defense, the Bears, most expensive defense on FanDuel, so no surprise there. But I think they are the best one to target. If you wanted to save money, you can probably go down to maybe the Lions at 37, or maybe the Cowboys, or potentially the Bills and save 500. But I would say that the Bears probably have the best chance of just breaking the slate from a defensive perspective. But defense is always random, so you don't want to put too much stock into it. You want to fill out the other spots, and if you have 5K left for the Bears, you plug it in. If not, you can go with some of these other defenses and just hope that no defense goes off and they all kind of score a similar amount, or at least not too much of a difference that it makes an impact. So that's about it for the this Thanksgiving Day slate. So the Cowboys, David Montgomery, Hunter Renfrow is probably the route I'm really looking at on both sites. Thanks for watching. Best of luck, and I'll see you guys all on Friday.